Hey everyone, and welcome back to the official Valorant tier list by SkillCapped.com. With patch 4.11's release, we saw a bunch of really awesome bug fixes, some of which removing those pesky Yoru animation cancel exploits, hopefully for good this time, and others addressing that cheeky Jett super dash tactic that everyone's probably died to at least once. Stick with us as we keep you up to date on the balance of all agents and let you know exactly how you can gain the most RR this patch. Before we get into the tier list, I did just want to mention a feature that was added this patch that everyone can rejoice over. Now you can mute all of your teammates when you're in a clutch with just the press of a button. So when you have that toxic Reyna on your team who just won't shut up, you don't have to deal with that anymore. This is really going to be able to help some players' success rate, especially if they maybe get a bit more nervous during clutch situations. Remember though, if you're really looking to improve your ability to clutch, the best way to do that is by checking out SkillCapped.com. Over on the site, we will walk you through exactly how to play any of the agents on this, as well as how to remain at the top of your game in all of those stressful situations during your matches. More on that at the end of the video. Starting out though, let's talk about our S tier agents. As usual, the queen of Valorant right now is Jett. Sort of. Jett is still sitting in a great spot. She definitely is still a premier agent in the game, but it's been so refreshing to see more agents take her place in the game. She's still incredibly strong, but is no longer a must pick. And actually the reason for that is Chamber. Chamber can do Jett's opping job, which leaves teams room to pick whatever agent they want in their place. The reason both these agents are still in the S tier is because you basically need to pick one or the other. So luckily, it's not the end of the world if you don't have one, but if you don't have either, you're probably going to struggle to select the opper for your team. These are the only two agents making their way into the S tier though this patch. Now let's move on to the A tier. Raze still finds herself high on this list. She's coming down from the S tier this patch, but she's still easily one of the best duelists. You see, right now, the name of the game in matchmaking is simplicity. Raze is really awesome in that regard because she brings so much space control in her kit at little cost for her teammates. If you compare this to some other duelists like Reyna, Yoru, or Neon, your team can sort of suffer if they don't know how to play around these agents. With Raze, however, there's not really many downsides to having her on your team, other than the fact she may break your Cypher tripwires sometimes, but let's be honest, who's running Cypher when they could be playing Chamber? Or the next agent on our list, Sage, is incredibly strong right now, boasting one of the highest win rates in the game, and nearly all ranks. The word that sticks out, and I said it before, is simplicity. She can halt a push in its tracks, and is by far one of the easiest agents to play in the game. She's constantly bounced back and forth within the meta, but something else that is super nice about Sage is she's actually not as punishing to play into Kayo. Kayo absolutely massacres the Sentinel role, being able to silence them and pretty much run them over whenever he wants. But Sage, since she doesn't really have setups, can almost beat this. At the start of rounds, if she hears Kayo ult, she can wall quickly before getting silenced to slow them down. Not to mention, she can also throw slow orbs from outside the range if need be to assist her team. Kayo is an agent that really excels versus agents that rely on their utility, but luckily, Sage doesn't really rely on her utility nearly as much as the other Sentinels. Not to mention, when playing against Fade and Sova, the two other meta initiators, a slow orb can completely shut down any ability to follow up on their utility. This is a pretty good segue into the initiators though. Basically, currently in Valorant, Fade, Sova, and Kayo are all in a weird place. They're all very strong and definitely worth picking. However, you're only realistically going to pick two of them in a match, and we can't really tell you one is worth picking over the other. Kayo does something no other agent does in the game, which is why he finds himself slightly higher than the other two. But aside from that, they're all very strong. Many pro teams are looking to sacrifice the Sova for a Fade. Some aren't even running Kayo at all. The Sova nerfs were obnoxious for the agent to say the least, but his shock darts still hit like a truck, and his drone recon combo can take up space so safely it's really hard to give him up. For me, Sova is still my go-to agent of choice for maps like Bind and Icebox especially. He can just scale up so safely, there's no reason really not to run him. Fade, on the other hand, has a ton of power within her prowlers. Those things have basically 4 billion health, and her ultimate is actually kind of crazy with the information it provides. It's basically just a massive KO knife in that it will tell you if it hits anyone. With that info, you can run in knowing you'll be safe, and enemies won't even be able to hear you, so you really can just full swing everything. Although the audio muffle is a cool gimmick, the huge power in this ultimate is definitely the info it provides and the way it amplifies her prowlers. You can basically just run people down, and that security when pushing is definitely super valuable. Speaking of agents who provide security though, the agents that provide the most security are the controllers. And the two most meta controllers right now are Omen and Viper. These agents are like the yin and yang of Valorant. You run Viper on half the maps and Omen on the other half. The reason for this basically being they provide smokes. Omen can provide up to 5 smokes in a round, and Viper's fuel refreshes constantly, allowing her to re-smoke when it's time for the post plant. Omen is especially strong on maps like Bind, Haven, Ascent, and Split, and although he's not drastically drastically better than Brimstone, his versatility places him just slightly above him. Viper, on the other hand, is great on Breeze, Icebox, and Fracture. It's the same old though. These agents are high on the list because they smoke things the best. It's not really about much more than that. Obviously, their other utility provides a lot of value, but at the end of the day, you pick a controller for their smokes, and these agents provide the best smokes right now. Not to hate on a man like Brimstone though, Brimmy is still great on maps like Fracture and Bind, and sees a bit of pro play. If he were more versatile, he may actually take the premier controller slot, but currently at this time, he's just good. Kinda crazy to think that an agent with an ultimate like his doesn't see more play, but maybe that just comes down to good balancing. That's kind of the name of the B tier though. All of these agents are picked sometimes on certain maps, but not really enough to be considered super strong overall. That's why Skye finds herself in the B tier. It's a hard world for all initiators competing with the top 3 mentioned before, but Skye is still finding a place with some teams on Bind and Ascent. Definitely still a strong agent, just not the best. The same can be said for both of our tech-loving Sentinels. Cypher and Killjoy both are playable and actually better than you might expect, but they just aren't Sage or Chamber. If you sacrifice the Chamber for a Killjoy, say on a map like Ascent, you basically have to run a Jett to pick up that operator role. Or if you run a Cypher, say on a map like Fracture or Breeze, you're gonna love the extra map control that you get, but once again, you'll be missing out on that extra duelist potential you could get from a Raze or Neon, since you'll almost certainly be running a Jett. Valorant, honestly, right now is a mixed bag though. All of these agents mentioned so far are actually played in pro play, but it just depends on what the team wants. If we're giving you suggestions for matchmaking at this point, what we recommend is playing with what you're comfortable with. You can follow these general rules of your team needs a Chamber or a Jett, but to be entirely honest, as long as your team has smokes, you can make pretty much any team comp work. These tiers are mostly just about how simple it is to make these agents work. Like, take a look at Breach, for example. He's our next B tier agent, and he's super good on Fracture. He even sees a bit of play on maps like Haven, but on other maps, he does lack a bit of information that the other initiators provide. He's very aggressive, but if you're too aggressive with this guy, you might just end up leading your teammates into their death. Nothing really beats having a drone on your team, and if you pick Breach, you definitely need to make sure your team is ready to capitalize on your stuns when they're available, otherwise you'll find it a bit hard to scale up. This is pretty similar to Astra right now, who, although has a very high win percentage in Radiant lobbies, actually doesn't feel great to play in matchmaking. The delay on getting her stars back really sucks when your team is starting out a round, because you have to decide where to place them. So if my team starts out toward A, and I place 3 stars there to help them out, if they don't actually end up going into sight, I have to wait a pretty long time to get those smokes back. When even your own team is unpredictable in matchmaking, this can be really frustrating to deal with. It's all about simplicity. How easy is it to get value with Astra in matchmaking? Not always the easiest. The same thing can be said for Yoru. He actually can fill Jett's role in the game when played well. He's a decent operator user and can disappear from a site just the same way Chamber can, albeit slightly slower. He can also take space with his teleport just like Jett might. However, he requires a bit more teamwork and babysitting. You've got to get your teammates on board with it. You need your Kayo to flash or your Omen to blind. They need to know how to play off your ultimate, which oftentimes just allows me to helplessly watch my teammates all die to a guy I called out already. When you pick these agents, there's a lot of responsibility placed on you to lead your team to victory, because playing with them isn't as intuitive as playing with a Jett. Neon is the next duelist on our list, and it's the same general theme. She's super aggressive and fast, but being fast isn't always good. Sometimes it just means you can sprint to your death faster. Clearly, that is not optimal. You really need your teammates to help you be explosive, especially once you start getting to the higher ranks. If you don't have your teammates on board to capitalize on the space you make, it doesn't really matter how fast you are. You'll just end up losing. This brings us to our C tier though, and Reyna is another one of those duelists that just needs a bit more babysitting. Although her dismiss and heal are great abilities for herself, it really requires a bit more teamwork to set a Reyna up. She can't explode onto sites like a Jett, Neon, Raze, or Yoru can, and because of this, she sort of relies on her supports to set her up a lot more than the other agents. I wish I could say Phoenix is the same. He's just outclassed at this point in the meta, but hopefully he sees some buffs eventually. I think I'd like to see them make Phoenix somewhat similar to Reyna. Maybe beef up his heals a bit, buff his wall damage or something, but be sure to let us know in the comments what you think they should do with Phoenix. That's gonna do it for this week's tier list though. Be sure to let us know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with our placements? We'd love to hear your feedback. Remember though, if you're really looking to improve at Valorant, then you've got to check out SkillCapped.com. Over on the site, we have hundreds of hours of exclusive content designed to take your game to the next level. It's also all backed by our rank improvement guarantee, meaning if you don't improve while actively using our service, you'll get your money back, no questions asked. We do this because our service works, and if it doesn't work, you shouldn't pay. So, what are you waiting for? Get started on your climb at SkillCapped.com, link in the description below.